Oh,
I forgot to sit down without Kleenex. I'll be right back.
Just popped up on the screen.
new audio hardware detector.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hear Phyllis?
Well, she's muted right now.
Cable somehow died the last 2 weeks. And the cable that carries all audio for y'all to be able to hear.
Oh, well,
Echo.
Zach, did you turn on that amplifier?
So we hear Matt. Can she hear us?
He's saying they can't hear.
Oh, got it, okay. Can you hear me, Phyllis?
I can, you're very garbled. It's too loud.
Okay, how about now?
Better,
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 better.
better.
Okay, so can you hear, Cease?
Can you hear me? Loud and clear.
Okay, so it's magically started working. Cool.
Now, if we can get rid of the echo. Judge, if you sit over here, they'll be able to get you on camera. You don't want to be on camera, that's no.
I'm on camera, I can't see though.
All right.
I couldn't get on at all. I mean, audio, I just pushed audio and it says mute off.
All right.
We're struggling.
We will start again. I will call to order the Tuesday, June 15th
meeting of the Monmouth City Council and ask Phyllis Bowman for the roll call, please.
Counselor Belts.
Here.
Counselor Carey.
Here.
Counselor Lopez.
Here.
Counselor McKeel.
Here.
Counselor Oberst.
Here.
Ms. Oliveros.
Here.
Mayor Oberst, or Mayor Coons, darn it.
Finally got her.
I am here. I'll do the flag salute this evening, and Councillor Terry, can you lead us?
We pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our
Thanks, Jen.
consent calendar consists of the minutes of the meeting of June 1st. If there are no corrections or additions, I would entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar as submitted.
As you request, so moved.
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Oberst and Councillor Belts for the second. And all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Great, thank you very much. We'll move on to citizen comments. As always, our citizen comments are entertained at this time. We limit individuals to 3 minutes. We typically do not respond to those comments except to ask clarifying questions, but we'll respond in writing or by a phone call. And we have no one here with us in chambers. Phyllis, are there any public comments that were mailed in or anyone online who has indicated they would like to comment?
Mayor Coons, we did not receive any comments.
Right. Thank you. We will jump right into our business agenda. And this evening, we have a couple of guests with us to start off with a discussion about goings on at the library board. And we have the chair of our library board here in the us, Judge Bill Horner, and we had Chris online. I don't know where she went. We'll go ahead and hear about what's going on at the library now that we're starting to inch back to normal.
Sort of.
Here's
For
Chris.
a short period of time, the employees were working at home, but then they came on a modified basis and were working in person during the library, in the library, and doing a lot of things, even though the library was closed. Sometime shortly, they began a, well, I don't know what else you call it, but you reserve a book, and then there were times in the afternoon that you called in advance that I'll be there on a certain time, and you're given the time. Then you drive into the library area, and then they have somebody there come and bring the book out for you. So that was done. And then the books are, quote, quarantined for, I think, 70 something days, some hours, in the meeting room that they have there. And they continue to do that. But the library is open, so I'm not sure why people do that, but some prefer not to go in, so they don't, and they can't call in. Physical things that were done is that there were two projects for the library sidewalk has crumbled in parts. And so in two different phases, they were replaced. Two HVAC units were installed in, well, a year ago now. The other things and then there's some broken seals that were replaced, and those were done. And then if you go into the library now, well, you can still recognize it, but it's the shelving and have been removed and moved about and expanded because to make it a more flowable layout than it was before, and also to increase shelving. And so that took time. And then they, Monmouth, I don't know if it's their first or one of the few, but we have a seed library, a lending library. No, it's not lending, you take it. But we have the seeds and we give them out. You can come and take them and hopefully use them. So that began as two different ones. One, they did it by mail, and then they did it along with the call-in. You reserve the seeds, and they would be available for you out in the drive-through. And let's see. Then they said reopen the Dropbox was done in June. They have something called a 4-H basic program with OH extension and the 4-H. They did a couple of things with the 4-H program and they do it visually. Then they had, the curbside service that I referred to began a year ago, June 15. And it was, and they put the books in a bag and then hand you the bag, and then you got an extra bag. See, they received a grant from United Way, and they combined that with the money from the Friends of the Library, and then they gave away books at the students that were going to Central School and having the meal pickup. But at that location, they would give out books, and they totaled 500 children and teens. Each received 3 books.
Wow.
During that book giveaway. They partnered with the Monmouth Public Works to create a Monmouth Story Walk in the parks. They began that in June of 2020. And the Public Works people built the stands, and then that holds the pages to the books, and you can go around and read those. Have these all circled. Well, they have a number of visual programs that they've done. They've partnered with the Polk County 4-H'ers on a number of reading books and also on basic baking basics that was held. Again, this is all done visually. The library wasn't opened until, as I said, in March 17. And it's open now. The hours are Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And Saturdays, they're open shorter time, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the afternoon. And then the curbside pickup continues Monday through Fridays, 10 to 4. The only thing, not the only thing they do, the books, if you return your books, they still through the Dropbox. Excuse me, I guess the Dropbox, it's out on the other side of the building. So that's still, rather than dropping the books off in the library, they come in externally, less contact. They used to also take books and magazines and donations. They're not doing that as of yet. They're not open or ready to do that yet. All in all, even though the library was closed for a substantial period of time, things were going on and the library was providing library services to the citizens of Monmouth through this period of time. I think it's commendable to the staff that we have, or you have, we all have.
Great.
I don't know about great, but it's done.
Hey, good to know what all is going on.
And our council liaison is there at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, she is. Any questions for either Chair Horner or for our librarian, Chris Obrist, or comments? John?
Just
Gary.
an alert perhaps, and probably more for you, Chris, than for Bill, but I had a chance encounter with a former counselor from Staten, Oregon. And he's kind of on a crusade to obtain a large amount of books from the city of Houston. And he didn't give me many details, but very passionate about it. Apparently their library was damaged somewhat in one of the last hurricanes.
Harvey was the big one in here.
Yeah, okay. And so FEMA is going to be replacing a number of, well, virtually all of their entire library. And somehow he's got it in his mind that it's available, and if we could pool resources to somehow get the shipping covered, freight up here. So he's got my card. He told me he'd be outreaching to me. He's not done that. If he ever does, Chris, I'm going to forward it on to you. And obviously we won't, who knows, but just a bit of a heads up. So.
All right. Yes, Councilor McKeel.
Yes, and first I want to just thank the library director, Chris Obrist, and the library staff for making such an effort to make sure that people kept getting books all through COVID. I actually enjoyed that several times, so thank you for that. Now that we are moving to becoming more open, I was wondering what was the thinking process of not opening up any evenings? So everything is like 10 to 4, 10 to 1. Is there a reason that the library is not going to open for the evenings?
It's more of a phase in for us to ramp up. We're kind of for staff now, we're kind of at capacity for the hours that we can cover, because we haven't invited our volunteers back. And so the next step would be inviting our volunteers back, giving them some refreshers and some training, and getting that all worked out, and then proceeding with, because we're not even allowing seating yet. So allowing people to stay longer and do seating. And then, so it's a gradual progression to help us not just jump off the deep end and flail about, but to be more measured and thoughtful in how we're providing our services.
So, so that makes sense, but I'm wondering 10 to 4 instead of like noon to 6, which would put, bump a little bit when people would sometimes be off work.
I can't really recall the thought process of how we came to 10 to 4. I don't. It's been a busy year. So yeah, that's all things that we can look at. We are looking at, we're always looking at how, and things are changing so quickly about how things are opening up and more things are happening and people can do more things. So again, we're trying to look at how we can best handle that. The staff has been very flexible over the course of the year. They've had to change their schedule several times. And so it's a matter of getting the schedule all juggled around, getting those volunteers back and getting some training so we can increase the hours, because the staff are having to do their work plus the volunteers' work. So we can get the volunteers back in. That will give them a little more time, that we can have more hours, more desk service hours. So it is a work in progress, as it has been the whole year.
Thank you. And Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Coons. I wanted to ask about summer reading, and I know that it's so different this year, but wondering what type of activities or events maybe for children and families this summer that at the library, even
In
if it's
fact,
virtual.
Summer readings just started today for all ages. We have the reading challenge for all ages, babies through 100+ years. We keep statistics that we have to report to the state library every year, and they've been kind of tweaking it. And this year they want to know the amount of time read for everybody. So it's sort of simplified our reading program. Part of it is everybody, for every 20 minutes you read, you mark off a thing on a reading log, and you can do multiple reading logs, and it gives you more chances to win prizes. And so for the reading part of it, that's all good to go. There'll be several virtual programs and take and make kit pickups. We're going to have a couple adult craft take and make activities. And so the only thing that's completely different is we aren't having any in-person programming still. So, but we will have some performers. Some good performers, and we're trying to tie our take and make kits with those performers. So we have a magician coming on a Thursday, and that Tuesday before the take and make is a magic kit that the kids can come pick up and they can play around with, and then they bring it to the program on Thursday and they get to learn some magic tricks. So it's kind of, we have an author who's coming to give a virtual tour of her studio and talk about what she does and read a book, and then they've got a little art project that the Tuesday before they'll come pick up the supplies for that, and they get to do it with the author virtually. So we're trying to tie some of those things together and provide really engaging experiences for everyone, and doing the best we can. And we have a new story walk coming out soon too.
Thank you.
Councillor McKeel will take another comment.
And I thank you for mentioning the story walk. Actually, I was really pleased to see that in Main Street Park. What a wonderful idea. So thank you for that. I forgot to mention that earlier. So sorry. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you. And hopefully we can keep kids entertained and learning over the summer. The school district is allowing returning students to keep their Chromebooks over the summer. So hopefully that will help with students who want to access things and should have that ability to do so. And hopefully those programs will continue to serve lots and lots of kids this summer. Sounds fun. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Chair Horner, for running over and joining us. Good to see you.
I'm going to take off. My second oldest grandson is wrestling for Tualatin today. So hopefully I'll be My laptop will work better than it did then.
Okay. Well, at least they don't need to hear you, or maybe they do. Okay,
Thanks, Judge.
thank you. Our next item of business, we actually have to officially hear the canvass of the vote from the May election, and our city recorder, Phyllis Bowman, will present that to us.
Honorable Mayor and members of the council, I am going to just give you this as information only. This is a canvass of the vote. A special election was held in Polk County, Oregon on May 18th, 2021. The ballot included a general obligation bond for a new city hall ballot measure number 27-133. The vote was as follows. Yes, 1,123 votes, which is 60.41%. No votes, 736, which is 39.59%. There were 13 undervotes, which means they voted neither yes nor no. So the total vote cast were 1,872. And attached to your staff report is the official results.
Great, thank you for that. Our item of business, we have at our June meeting, we usually look at those amazing volunteers who are serving on our boards and commissions, and they have rotating terms. We have before us a list of individuals who have served on these committees and are actually willing to continue to be reappointed for another term. And I think we look at these names, and Judge Horner was one of them, and he mentioned Carol Harding. Just an example of some of the folks who have done this year after year after year and continue to volunteer a number of hours to our tree advisory board, senior boards, library, our historic commission, parks and rec, and arts and culture. We also have a few folks who will not be continuing and are moving on in their community service. And we will be sending a note to thank them for the work that they've done. So really, I cannot say enough thanks to these people, especially serving during this crazy time in some of these boards and commissions. And tonight we have an opening. One of the resignations we had was Susan Fuller from the Monmouth Engaged Committee, University Community Connections, as Ms. Fuller and her husband Rex Fuller will be leaving town upon his retirement. And Emily Menser has applied to take a position on that committee. She not only lives in Monmouth, but she also works for the school district. And I know the committee was hoping to tie in more with other community-wide organizations like the school district. So we have some reappointments, and one new appointment to consider this evening. There's a proposed motion in your packet.
Madam Mayor, I would move to reappoint the listed applicants to their respective boards and commissions and to appoint Emily Menser to the Monmouth Engaged University Committee Connections, or I'm sorry, University Connections Committee.
Yes.
I second.
Thank you, Councillor Carey, and I think Councillor Salinas Oliveros for the second. And any discussion about that? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. Unanimous recommendation to keep our boards and commissions active and going.
Madam Mayor, if I could just, Phyllis, if you have a notion of any empties positions that you could send around to council to see if there's any recruitment that could happen, that would be good. We appreciate that. Thanks.
I will.
Thank you. All right, we have a couple of items of action items, some resolutions here. And our first order of business is with Russ Cooper, our Public Works Director. So take it away, Russ.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Attached for your consideration is Resolution 1925. It's a resolution that establishes 2-hour parking restrictions on the south side of Jackson Street between Warren and Monmouth Avenue. It's before you because council adopts resolutions that allow for the installation and subsequent enforcement of traffic control measures in Monmouth. This came about business owner of the Donut Bar located behind 191 Monmouth Avenue North approached the city with a request to create some short duration parking stalls adjacent to their business. To be consistent with our parking, I'll say standards in the downtown core, that was our recommendation to implement 2-hour parking restrictions on the diagonal parking stalls along that block. As you'll see in the resolution, the signs will read 2-hour parking, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. except Sundays and holidays. It's believed that regular turnover in these vehicles in this area will provide sufficient opportunities for food cart customers to visit the food carts. As I identify, and we've done this in the past when we establish new parking restrictions, we work with the CSO, with the police department in doing some public education before we move to enforcement. As far as financial implications, there's about $1,100 in materials and labor to install, and then will be the Public Works Department street fund will be responsible for the ongoing cost of maintaining these signs. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, there's a proposed motion in your staff report.
Great. And questions of Russ? Councillor Oberst?
And this isn't really for Russ, it's more for Marty. We have a long history of not enforcing parking in Monmouth. And I'm just wondering, does that continue even though we're now, I mean, it's almost a joke on campus that, you know, you can park wherever you want to and you don't have to worry about getting a ticket because Monmouth doesn't enforce parking. And so I just, you know, I favor the idea of putting these slots here, Russ. I do have concerns that it's just another block of places that people are going to park and not pay any attention to the signs because they never get any tickets.
Would you like her to address it? Or was that a rhetorical question?
Yes, either way. That was a yes. So,
I'm not sure that I'm going to have a perfect answer for you, Councilor Oberst, but among staff, Mr. Cooper and also Chief Haynes, we had a discussion about enforcement and what could be done to begin to look at enforcement, because we have heard from some of our board and commission members as well that it's, you know, the same point that you just made, that if the enforcement really is what makes the difference between, you know, having any regulations there at all. So all I can say is that we've talked about it. I don't think we have a plan in place to do anything specifically related to this. And I would invite Chief Haynes if he has anything else that he'd like to mention on that front.
There he is.
Yeah, I really wish that it was a little bit better. I guess I agree with you, Councilor Oberst. I think that in order to have, we need to be obviously enforcing that. However, it's one of those things that we don't have currently. We don't have the bandwidth to do that. Our CSO works part-time, as you know, and I think one of the hardest things is to be consistent with all of the parking. And that would take probably some personnel to make happen. We just don't have the time currently, but as Director Cooper mentioned, generally speaking, whenever we've made some changes to parking, you know, we'll spend a couple weeks or a couple months really trying to educate people, and that's by way of warnings and being out and making contact with people. From there, we deal with parking on a complaint basis. So it's not the best answer. It's what we have currently, and but it's kind of where we're at.
Yes, and Counselor Belts and then Counselor McKeel.
Perhaps through the budget process next year, we can look at the increased potential based on fines and personnel cost to bring somebody in that could do enforcement. Because it's true, if everybody knows that you're not going to get a ticket, everyone's just going to break the law, basically. So
Sure.
I think it's something we should look at budget-wise.
Another comment, if I may, I know that our Community Economic Development Director, Defner, has noted that we had planned to do a study at some point in the coming year of downtown parking, and I think that will give us some more information both about where we have the greatest pinch points and where an enforcement program might be most useful. So,
Oh, good, great. Counselor McKeel?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm actually, having that data would be very helpful because I look at a 2-hour parking requirement or parking limit with the punishment of a ticket is if you have lots of trouble parking. But we don't have that problem in Monmouth. I think people say there's the 2-hour there and people kind of like, some people monitor it, some people don't. But it's not like Salem where you can't find a place to park and you need to have that limit. So I kind of look at the 2-hour parking signs allows the city to step in and issue tickets, as I think Chief Haynes was talking about, if there's some problem because they don't have any parking in that street at any time. And I'm sorry, I'm just mumbling away. I've been spending way too much time with my grandkids this week, and I'm just going to have to claim, grandmother exhaustion. But anyway, I'm going to try it one more time. I think it's fine that we're not issuing tickets right now. It allows us, having that 2-hour limit does allow us to take care of problems when they exist. And I apologize for the rambling.
Thank you. And I have one question, Russ. Do we have any provision for 15-minute spots if this doesn't fix things? Do we have those anywhere in town?
We do have a couple spaces. What we've, I guess I'll either call it a concern or I guess the concern with that is that would be trying to identify when is a 15-minute zone appropriate over, is that a particular business's number of trips or, and then we've seen, we do have a few of those in town, and now they're located in front of businesses that they really make no sense that they're in front of those businesses.
We have 2 in front of Master Appliance, as I recall, from when it used to be the post office.
That's a good
How many years
example.
ago was that?
Yeah.
Well, that was supposed to have been corrected a year ago.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Okay. I had not noticed.
Okay.
May have been.
So just question, if there continues to be a question about it, it is an option we could always look at. That was the question. So, okay. All right, Councilor Lopez,
Okay.
and then Councilor Carey, and then we'll go on.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Cooper, is the wording in these signs is that consistent with the wording that's used in other signs throughout the city? I've been in cities in the past, and I haven't noticed this here, but where the days of enforcement and wording is not consistent. So, excluding Sundays versus Saturdays, etc. Is that a concern here?
So the wording is consistent with what what we've used in Monmouth. Monmouth is inconsistently consistent in their application of no parking in the downtown corridor.
Yes, that's been covered. But I'm glad to hear that the wording is consistent with other signage in other spots. And then my next question is is there a demonstrated need here? I read through the report and didn't see any objective data, and maybe this is too small of a thing to gather a lot of objective data, but aside from a business owner saying, hey, I'd like one here, what are our criteria, and what problem, I guess, is this trying to address?
Usually where these signs are applied, there are businesses that are adjacent to this space, and it is usually or typically or almost always in that downtown corridor. And the particular location for this request is well known as, we'll call it auxiliary university parking, that often students will come, or even staff will come, park, and those vehicles will remain there until that individual leaves. And so there is turnover in those spaces, but they tend to maintain max 100% capacity throughout the day during the week when school is in session.
Thank you, and that brings one more question, which I promise will be my final one. With that issue of the auxiliary or overflow parking from the university, will any of our outreach efforts involve reaching out to the university as far as education on those spaces, or will our outreach be more responsive and limited to just those two physical spaces? Or are we going to send something to the university saying, hey, these spaces are changing?
We can certainly, the last time we did it, we did a mix of both. It was the CSO working on site in the field, and then we also have worked with the university parking restrictions up there. So yes, I think that's a great idea. Typically how we handle that is we work with our counterparts in the physical plant, and then they do some sort of mass emailing to folks on campus.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Counselor Carey, you want to wrap it up for us?
Yeah, just a couple of things I think we want to be conscious of and alert to. I think because of the proximity to the park, it will impact park users, from time to time, especially once we get the splash park going again. Kids are not going to want to hang, they're not going to be limited to 2 hours. I mean, so we're just going to want to be sensitive and keep an eye on that, and to see if there's any adjustment that should be made as a result. One of the things I would have liked to have seen, but it's not really, I guess, critical, is where the other 2-hour parking zones are. And my recollection is that they are up on, Monmouth Avenue between Jackson and Main, certainly, and east to Clay. We have had some enhanced enforcement in those areas. So this makes good sense to wrap around. I think it's a good idea. I think it'll be a bit of a learning curve. And while the problem that we're trying to solve may not be evident right now, I can guarantee you it will be once the new Monmouth Commons comes online. That will become de facto Monmouth Commons parking without this. And well, I don't remember it clearly, but I did study B.F. Skinner as an undergrad, and the concept of operant conditioning is pretty effective, which is to say intermittent punishment and reward. So we don't have to enforce that all the time. We enforce it periodically, and that makes the impression. So, we don't need to have somebody walking up and down with a fat ticket book in their pocket, but periodically coming by and, nailing the abusers. So I think it's a good idea. Applaud you for bringing it like you did, and I think we'll just need to learn from it as it goes.
Make the motion.
And so therefore, I would move approval of resolution 1925, a resolution establishing 2-hour parking on the south side of Jackson Street West between Warren and Monmouth Avenue.
Second.
Thank you, Counselor Carey and Counselor Belts. And assuming there's no further discussion, we'll have Phyllis call the roll.
Counselor Lopez,
Yay.
Counselor Belts,
Yes.
Counselor McKeel,
Yes.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Yes.
passes 6-0.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And another resolution, and I believe we will have Janet Schnard, our finance director, report to us about interfund activity to wrap up this fiscal year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and honorable council members. Yes, it sounds pretty familiar from last meeting. I know it relates to our police station general obligation bond fund. There were some good questions from the councilors Johns regarding the reason for the shortfall. So I've tried to answer that as well in my staff report. In addition, what actually transpired and why I'm bringing you this week rather than having done it 2 weeks ago is that the state budget law expert that I normally deal with, who was on vacation when I spoke to the other state budget law expert about how to deal with the transfers, came back from vacation and responded that if we wanted to make it an interfund loan, we should have that as part of the transfer resolution. And so with this staff report, I am suggesting that we, in fact, do make it an interfund loan or recommending that. However, of course, we don't have to do that. We can dollars in if we end up transferring any in the GO bond fund and just use them for that payment purpose. But additionally, to the points that were raised last time, I did call or put another call into the finance director at the county, who coincidentally was also on vacation the week that I was working on our staff report, the previous staff report. And so she did get back to me just last week and suggested that no, that in fact collections are coming in as expected. And so I went back to the drawing board to make sure that I knew why we were experiencing this shortfall. And it has to do, frankly, with an adjustment that I made about 3 years ago to our collections and discount factors. For many years, I used a collection and discount factor for property tax collections for permanent levy rates, like or not permanent levy, sorry, for dollar levy rates, like general obligations bond that incorporated our typical collection level, which can be anywhere from 96% to 98%, and a discount factor for those folks who pay their property tax bills early, which can be up to 3%. And so the range of the average there is often 2% to 3%, depending on who pays early. Obviously, in this market, a lot more people are paying are paying early because they can take advantage of a 3% discount, which is a pretty good yield compared to interest rates that they might get by holding on to those funds. So all of that to say, back in the day, from starting in 2015, we had a fairly generous and very typical discount and collection rate that built up our fund balance, and that is not a best practice. So back in 2019, I decreased that, well, actually assumed we would get more and thereby decreased what we levied. And that caught up with us this year. So all of that, well, it actually caught up with us last year by a little bit, but I still projected a higher fund balance than we ended up getting. And so all of that to say, we did get another $4,000 just last week. So the $10,000 won't happen. However, that's the amount that we've appropriated. So I'm suggesting that our interfund loan number mirror that. And, but I expect that we will probably be looking at something less than $5,000 actually, because we'll get another 1,000 to 1,500 with our final turnover, based on last year's turnovers. And so all of that to say, the rationale remains the same, is that we can't have a negative fund balance. So we do need to do a transfer. And the question becomes, whether or not we should treat that as an interfund loan or not. And so I've put a resolution in packets to recommend that we turn it into an interfund loan so that the monies can be put back in the general fund for use there, when our new permanent or our new flat dollar levy for this year brings in enough money to hopefully ensure that we can pay it back. And with that, I would take questions.
Are there any questions?
I think this is pretty simple. I would like to just go ahead right to the motion and beat out Counselor Oberst before he does it.
All yours.
I move that resolution 1926 be approved to authorize an interfund loan from the general fund to the police station GO bond debt service fund using transfer authority created in resolution 1917.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor McKeel for the motion and Councillor Oberst for the second. Are there any additional questions of Janet?
Cease, I have just an observation.
Thank you, Lane. Yes.
I just noticed the motion refers to resolution 1917 in the title. Apparently, the title of the resolution refers to 2017.
That was
Yeah.
corrected.
That was corrected.
I notified, yeah. I notified council that it was corrected. Yeah.
2017 is correct?
1917 is correct.
Okay, that'll be changed in the resolution that gets signed
Yes.
then.
Yes,
Okay.
I've already changed it.
All right.
Thank you for picking up on that. She caught her Scrivener's error, so I think we'll be okay when we complete it. All right, seeing no additional questions, Phyllis, go ahead and call the roll, please.
Counselor Carey,
Aye.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros,
Aye.
Counselor Lopez,
Aye.
Counselor Oberst,
Aye.
Counselor Belts,
Aye.
Counselor McKeel.
Yes.
Passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Janet. And we now, moving on to a discussion we've had about bird scooters and an opportunity to have a new alternate transportation method in our community. So Marty, is this one yours or?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you, Madam Mayor and honorable councilors. Tonight, we have before you an ordinance 1398, to consider to create new provisions that would regulate the providers of electric stand-up scooters here in Monmouth. And we also have provided to you, although it's not for any action by the council, a set of administrative rules that would also guide the way the scooters would operate here in Monmouth. So you'll remember back in the spring, you heard from a representative from the Bird Scooter Company, and they've expressed a desire to come and operate in Monmouth. And we don't really have any way to guide their operations. So what this ordinance does is to create a license that would allow them, that they would come and apply for. It defines what we know about the way e-scooters, electric scooters operate. Provides for a license that is a 2-year license. We're proposing that the initial license it's for 2 years and it would be for $500 and then would renew at a lower rate of $200. And we also are proposing a per ride fee. And you'll be seeing that in a separate resolution that will come after, if you consider the ordinance and decide to pass it, we'll bring you a fee resolution that has the structure for that license. In the meantime, you all raised some really good questions at the time we heard from the Bird Scooter Company, and what we've tried to do with this ordinance is to address it in less detail at the ordinance level, just to allow the permission for them to operate in the city. And then the administrative rules are will be what guides what they're able to do on the ground. I don't know if I need to go into a whole bunch of detail. If you've had a chance to take a look at the ordinance, there is some state law that guides how electric scooters can operate here in Oregon, such as the riders need to be 16 years or older. They're not allowed to operate on the sidewalk. We would also prohibit them from being operated in our parks. And I'm trying to think of anything else that I wanted to say. We have not yet designated any city designated parking areas or staging areas. And I think that's something that we're going to work on together with Bird Scooters so that we know that where they're going to be staging and setting up as they reposition the scooter fleet. The administrative rules say that they would start with a fleet of 50 to 100 scooters. And as I mentioned, as we work with Bird, we'll be figuring out a little bit more about what happens on the ground. So rather than go through a great detail about what's in the ordinance, because I'm going to assume that you've read it, I'd answer any questions that you have, or if you're curious about what this might look like.
Okay, Councilor Lopez.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for that overview. Thank you very much for the very thorough staff report on this. While I'm incredibly excited to see this augment our current transportation options as an alternative transportation to utilizing traditional vehicles, I do have a question or concern about the logistics of the helmet provision with it. It does say that all riders would be required to ride the scooters in the street, not on sidewalks, and it does require helmets. And I'm very much in favor of both of these. I guess I'm just looking for any answers to how this has been implemented from an educational angle in other communities. When I see these in other places, in Golly, I'll admit to having ridden something like this in another city before without a helmet myself. Not knowing that, and I think I did it on the sidewalk too, not knowing that these were potentially things that I needed to do there. So how do we better educate people before others make the same mistakes that I did?
Well, I'm going to answer this in two ways. One is, I think that when you heard from our e-scooter representative when she came in April, one of the things that the Bird Scooter Company will do as they launch will be to ensure that the riders have information on the app, on the application when they're signing up for the scooter that basically has the rider agree to the provisions, including riding with a helmet and not on the sidewalk. Now, I can say we all understand that in practice that may not, or practically, that may not actually come to pass. So with the launch, Bird is agreeing to do some community education that looks more like promotion of how to use the service properly. They will promote it through the app as riders sign up, and on every scooter, there's information that includes sort of the basic rules about what's required for them to ride. So that's what we've got in terms of education at this point.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Belts.
So in the past, because I'm going to put my work hat on now, in the past when we've promoted either e-scooter or bike programs in communities, we then work with a helmet provider to see if we can get someone to come into the community and either sell helmets inexpensively, or we give the riders information where they can acquire those helmets inexpensively. Oftentimes we will even work with fire department to do an outreach event and give helmets away if we can get a hold of them. So I'll be in touch with Bird and make sure that if that's a concern, because we don't want somebody, granted, they have to be 16 and over and they have to pay for the service. However, I would hate for not having a helmet to be the barrier for someone.
I have also seen in communities where not just Bird, but other scooter companies operate a provision of sort of a community helmet rack, where if they're just publicly available helmets that are available for borrowing. I'm not sure that's great in the public health crisis that we're in at the moment, but I've seen that as well. So
just like the life jackets at the river,
right.
Same idea.
Yep. Yes, Counselor Carey.
With respect to the ordinance, and by the way, I share Counselor Lopez's enthusiasm for this. I think this would be awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. Old drag races up and down. But as I read it, I wondered if we'd want to take a look at on the first page. Actually, it's page 304, item number 5. It appears there's a couple of words missing there. A person shall not park or leave a stand-up scooter, a stand-up motor assisted scooter designated as a no parking area. I think
Oh,
in
it
an
should be
area.
In a, yeah.
Probably should in an area that is designated as no
Right.
parking. And then that seems to be a bit redundant with item E on the second page,
Yes, good catch.
5E. They seem to be saying the same thing.
Oh.
And then the substantive one that I wondered about was A on that same page. It talks about that the scooters parked upright, et cetera, in such a manner as not to impede or impair access to a variety of things, including bicycle racks. I sort of wonder if a bicycle rack might not be a bad place to put them.
Many communities designate bike racks as either the designated parking space or the place where the scooters are positioned when they start for the day. So I think the goal with section A is really to keep the scooters out of the way, but not in a way that doesn't, like impede something. But it doesn't, I think the idea is you don't want them hanging on the bicycle racks or blocking the bicycle racks, but they could definitely be used as parking areas.
Yeah, okay. I mean, so adjacent to
Yes.
would be all right, just
Yes.
not,
Using
yeah.
it for its intended purpose of parking the scooter, but not just heaped up by the.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, and that's unfortunately the image you have is heaped up, and it's not.
That would be impeding the other. So.
And then I was a little troubled by D, on that, 5D, I guess it is. And it talks about,
Our last action item this evening, and thank you, Councillor Shedderly, for your assistance with that, is from the lovely Suzanne Duffner. This is a grant application for more state assistance in a program for housing development and production. So kind of keeping with our theme of the work we're doing with affordable housing. And I will turn this over to Suzanne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and honorable city council members. Yes, this is a request for council to consider supporting a letter for us to submit a grant application to the Department of Land Conservation Development to prepare a housing production strategy. The DLCD currently has a grant assistance program open and available, and they have reached out to the city of Monmouth to see if we were interested in this. So we've had some discussions with them, let them know that we've actually completed a housing needs analysis just recently in 2019. It identified some draft housing strategies, and we're kind of at that stage of trying to prioritize and implement those further so we can actually affect the housing stock and have more of that provided. So this is, I believe, consistent with the council priorities for this fiscal year that have been set to encourage more affordable housing development. I believe that the housing production strategy would help us come up with a more specific strategy with some timelines and resources on what exactly we're going to accomplish. In terms of the grant itself, there's no formal match requirement for it, but they do indicate that it shows the community's commitment if we do put in in-kind contribution at a minimum to be able to help with public outreach and meeting coordination. Certainly cash match is also welcome, and so if we were to go submit this, we would certainly provide that in-kind contribution of staff's time to assist with grant work. And then also some of the funding that would be needed for example, for translation services for the materials that go out for public outreach. So applications are due June 30th, and if awarded, we'd be able to hire a consultant and start work in September of this year, and then all work has to be completed by June 2022. I will point out this is completely voluntary. You're not compelled or required to do a housing production strategy. There are some cities that are over the population threshold that have met the criteria by the state requirements that do have to, that are mandatory, that they prepare these housing production strategies. This is more of, does Monmouth want to be proactive and see this as a resource to help with some of those council priorities that we've talked about earlier with regards to housing. So you do have alternatives listed there to approve the letter of support. There's one that's been drafted and included in the council packet, and direct staff to submit a grant application by the deadline to produce a housing production strategy, or you can take no action on that. And staff estimates that it will take approximately 15 to 20 hours to prepare the grant application. So, and there's a sample motion for you when you're ready for that.
Thank you, Suzanne. Comments or questions about housing production strategies? Councillor McKeel.
I'm ready for the motion. This is a great idea. Thank you for doing this. But then I'll wait because obviously there might be questions.
And you can and anyone can always put a motion on the floor, and if there's a second, we can always have discussion after the motion. So please feel free.
Oh, go get it.
I'm going to do that then. Okay. I move approval of a letter of support for the city of Monmouth to submit a grant application to prepare a housing production strategy. And thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you, Councillor McKeel, and I'm going to give the second to Councillor Lopez. So indeed, the aforementioned questions, anyone? Counselor Carey.
You said this was voluntary. You brought it forward, and thank you for doing so. But do you have the bandwidth to do this? I mean, you know, getting the application in there is one thing, then the work starts. I mean, that's a legitimate,
Yeah,
honest.
oh, it's absolutely a legitimate, yeah, good question. Thank you for raising that. We've also have the second phase of the
Right.
transportation growth management,
And
the
the
code
city hall.
update. Great. So we have consultant services that would do the heavy lifting portion of the work. And so, yes, it's going to have demands on our time, but thankfully the budget committee and the council approved a staff person to help me. And so Elizabeth Pongratz, an associate, like I said, can't call her new anymore, but she's our associate planner. And so she, you know, be helping take the lead on this and doing the coordination. So yeah, I believe it's important enough work, you know, that it's again, consistent with the council priorities that it's something that would also help us as well. So yeah, thank you for asking that.
All right, any other questions? Then all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 I see unanimous support for this, so we will move forward. And again, thank you for bringing it forward. It really is going to be a great additional piece. All this seems sort of a bureaucratic way to figure out what kind of housing we want and how we're going to move forward. But the nice thing is this comes with money, so, and support, and certainly having folks at DLCD offer to us to be engaged because they feel that this is something we can commit to, I think is a great, certainly shows their confidence in us. So appreciate that, Suzanne, and thank you. All right, with that, we come to the reports, and I just have a couple of brief things for the mayor's report. One is we recently received our statement of activity for the 2020 year from the Monmouth Independence Community Foundation. Years ago, when Monmouth celebrated its sesquicentennial 150th anniversary, they raised money for various activities, and some of that money was left over. Scott MacArthur, who was a longtime city attorney and is our unofficial or official historian, puts some additional funds into the Monmouth Independence Community Foundation for the Monmouth Bicentennial Fund. His goal is to have that money earn for 50 years, so that at a time when we go to celebrate our bicentennial, as he said, we would be able to throw a hell of a party. So that money was put away. $2,056 were put in to that fund, and our statement from the Monmouth Independence Community Foundation has a year-end balance of $6,779.41. So
That's a pretty good party coming up.
that's starting to be a good party, and we, as we get closer to that, we'll probably encourage donations to that fund. But I just wanted to share that great news, and as always, thank Scott MacArthur for his foresightedness in these things. Tonight I am wearing a t-shirt, a bilingual t-shirt that is mentions courage equals change, and this is a project of the Central School District, Salem Health, and Polk County Health, particularly Polk County Behavioral and Mental Health Services. There was an event tonight at the high school that was a release of a video that has been made featuring students and families in our community to bring awareness to the importance of health care and mental and behavioral health care. That video will be released to the community and be sharing it through various outlets, but it is certainly a concern and an issue of our times. People have been obviously really impacted in health outcomes this past year, and we want to bring awareness to these issues and the resources that are available to help folks. So Courage Equals Change will be coming to a video screen near you, and I hope everyone has an opportunity to see that. Finally, I really want to acknowledge that this weekend, past weekend, we got one of those sort of back to normal feels. Western Oregon University held an in-person commencement, 700 students, as opposed to the normal 1,100, participated in a live commencement ceremony. And I was able to be there for part of that. It consisted of students and their families driving up in decorated vehicles, getting out, coming into the stadium in small cohorts. The families got to stand right down on the track in front of the dais as the students crossed to graduate. And it was great. It brought back that sort of excitement and what we know we will have next year as students return in person. So a really great opportunity to celebrate the graduating class of 2021, as well as some folks who graduated in 2020 and had a completely virtual ceremony. So they got to walk across as well. And congratulations to the Western Oregon University class of 2021. Reports of boards and commissions. What have all of those volunteers been busy doing? I will start with Councillor Oberst.
First, I have to say I had two cross that stage. So I had 2020 graduate and 2021. So.
They were both in the afternoon and I didn't get to see them. I was only there.
It was a nice, given circumstances, it was a nice ceremony. As I said, shortest graduation I've ever been to, no speeches.
And I think there will be parts of this we'll keep forever. We had a great discussion about that among the Board of Trustees and the leadership of the university.
So I'd like to start by noting that the Parks Board meeting for June was canceled. The next meeting will be the 14th of July. We have moved the meeting time forward to 6 o'clock. The other meeting I had is the once a quarter meeting of Traffic Safety Commission. Old news, we've requested a speed study on 99W South down near Bymart and beyond, where the speed picks up to 40 and then 50. And we have a street that enters the highway out there now. And so we're requesting ODOT have a look at that. No update on when they're going to come to help us with that particular study. Also, we have a Safe Routes to School planning grant, and that outreach for public input on that Safe Routes grant has been postponed till fall because schools have not been open. So we'll have that outreach coming up in the fall. New business, we have the 99W bike ped study is just getting underway. And this is not just about safety, but also how to improve the user experience. There will be online surveys coming up. There's going to be a dedicated web page, various other outreach efforts. So keep your eyes peeled for that. The one concern that was raised about 99W in church, I think we talked about that last meeting, and ODOT was on the spot quickly with diagonal striping that did absolutely no good. People continued to use the little triangle as a left turn lane. So they quickly came in again and put in the little plastic candlesticks that have completely screened off that area. Folks are still squeezing around the end of that area to turn left into Church Street. So I'm not convinced that it solved the problem. We do have rapid rectangular flashing beacons on the capital improvement plan, and I can't recall whether that's this year or next year, but eventually we'll have those beacons there. We also had a concern raised about parking along Madrona on the east side of 99W, where people are turning in and immediately there was a camper parked there for a while. And so it was a real tight squeeze to make the corner, look out for oncoming traffic, look out for traffic on 99. So we will be having brought to us in future points some no parking along that area to try to push the parking back away from 99 a little bit. Traffic Safety Commission will be coming to council in July to talk to us about what's going on. Next meeting of this group is on September 13th at 7. And theoretically, by then, we should be live and in person at the police station. That's all.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Councillor Salinas Oliveros.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not able to attend the June 2nd Historic Commission meeting. I had a graduating senior, at the senior awards. So I attended that event. And I do want to say that Central School District did an amazing job with graduation this year. And we were able to be outside, away from each other, but it was a beautiful event, fantastic speakers, and it was very well done. So I want to commend Central School District for that, and my senior had a wonderful time. So Suzanne Duffner was kind enough to type up the minutes, and I will briefly go through the Historic Commission. So for the minutes, the display, the historic scavenger hunt, and that went really well. Around 30 participants actually returned their completed scavenger hunt flyers. And the display is going to continue to stay up for a while. It's very beautiful if you have not walked by. Also, the mural project that for the Ross IGA building is published. It's on the city website. There's been email notifications sent out, local artists associations, galleries, Western Art Department, OSU, pretty much everywhere that we could think of. And the proposals are due June 28th. And then the Historic Photo Archive project, the city hired a recent Western Oregon University history graduate as an intern to work on a historic photo archive project. And so that will be ongoing. And then Columbus Day Storm memories. So the commission discussed Columbus Day Storm memories from Betty Plude's book, and also looking at how to put that together, asking the intern to research more information, also combining that with how the Columbus Day Storm affected our migrant workers and farmers in the area, and looking at different perspectives of how to bring this to light as another event for the Historic Commission. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. And Councillor Lopez.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I do not have a board and commission report per se, more a councilor comment. I would like to note that the Senate just passed a bill to establish Juneteenth. This is the day that marks the end of slavery in the United States as a national holiday. This was passed unanimously by the Senate and is now moving to the House. Hopefully they will pass it as well. A little background on Juneteenth. It's celebrated on June 19th. It's also known as Freedom Day, and it recognizes and marks the emancipation of formerly enslaved African Americans. It's commemorating the date in 1865 when slaves in Galveston, Texas first learned of their newfound freedom. So I'm just incredibly excited to hear this progress on a national level, especially with the unanimous passage of the bill, and wanted to make sure that we had a chance to celebrate that as a city here and recognize it.
Thank you. Yes, and I do always save council comments for the end, so you would have been able to get that in, but thanks for that. Councillor Oliveros, another commissioner.
A point on those council comments, it wasn't in the agenda. Normally it is noted in the agenda. It was not listed in the agenda I received, so that's why
I always write it in. I will always ask that. That one I try not to skip over, because we do have a lot of great announcements usually, so. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Carey.
Briefly on the Planning Commission, something that we initiated with the Planning Commission, and that had to do with the developer request on the side yard setbacks. That's gone through a public hearing on that, and I believe that's the business item on the agenda for the Planning Commission meeting tomorrow. Once they dispense with that, they will get the pearls of wisdom dispensed by one Lane Shetterly on how to conduct themselves as counselors. So we've all heard it, but if you need a little more dose of Lane, dial in. It's at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. That concludes it, Madam Mayor.
Planning Commissioner 101.
Yeah.
All right, any other reports for us this evening before we go to Marty? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I just have a couple of items for the city manager's report tonight. I reported on Friday that our last report on Friday was that the city managers and also our police chiefs of Monmouth and Independence have continued to meet with a second volunteer group who wish to hold a 4th of July parade. So time's getting on here and planning has resumed, and I have received a permit application for a parade and a street closure that is incomplete. So both of the cities have decided to ask this group to submit a complete application by tomorrow, Wednesday, close of business, or we'll, as cities, let them know time has run out to be able to hold a parade this year. So I'm not sure at this point whether that's going to happen or not, but I will keep you posted. I wanted to give a shout out to Polk County. And this morning, Governor Brown, or this afternoon, Governor Brown announced updates to our county risk levels. And Polk County has made it to 64.24% of first dose vaccinations. So we'll be approved as a county to move to lower risk as soon as we achieve 65%. And Polk County also completed their the vaccine equity plan that's required for OHA. So we're headed in the right direction. And then finally, just to add on to the mayor's comment about the video and the importance of mental health services, at the staff level continue with our healthcare providers, Pacific Source, Polk County Behavioral Health, Western Oregon University, and Salem Health West Valley Hospital about ways that we can bring all types of services, healthcare services to our community, notably behavioral health and mental health services, and also telehealth and primary care. So we'll keep you posted about how those talks are going as they proceed.
On that note, Salem Health has announced, we just got notified that Salem Health acquired the Willamette Valley Physicians Partnership, and that gave Salem Health 2 facilities, the Monmouth Main Street facility and the former Monmouth Independence Clinic in Independence near the high school. They eventually, during the pandemic, when they closed most doctors' visits, they closed that clinic, and they indicated they would not be reopening the Independence Clinic. It was, the facility itself needed a lot of work. However, and they also operate in the school-based health center across from Central High School, very close to that. However, we just received an email from Brendan Schmidgall, who is the Chief Administrative Officer of West Valley Hospital, and they have seen, in fact, there is a need for additional services and service providers. And he has indicated that they will be rehabilitating that Independence Clinic and restaffing it. So there will be some additional healthcare providers on the Independence side within months. So that was great news about that. Yeah, thanks for that reminder.
Cease?
All right, yes.
Cease, as the incoming board chair of Salem Health, starting in July, I can tell you that was a miss. I think staff didn't appreciate the special relationship between Monmouth and Independence. And even though the Monmouth Clinic is only a mile down the road from the closed Independence Clinic, it's a world apart. And so I'm really pleased that staff took the advice of the community and is reopening that Independence Clinic.
Great, thank you, Lane, and thank you for representing Polk County interests on that board. Yes.
For the city manager, Marty, in your Friday notes, you indicate that the contract negotiations underway with the police union, and council for discussion. In the past, we've had around, wages and